All right, well, it's story time. And you know what that means? I'm going to tell you a story. At any rate, if you're not familiar with this format, I thought it would be fun to tell some stories from the last 17-year journey that I've been on, helping kids move on to college and professional baseball, and weave it in with a story. And in this case, you're actually going to get two stories in one, okay? Two for the price of one. So the story begins with a young kid named JJ Medijevic, 14-year-old kid that I had the pleasure of meeting him and his parents. And they came into the program that I was that I had started and was building. And every year, I would try to have meetings with the players that I was coaching. I called the meeting the good, the bad, and the ugly. We would sit down and I would talk to the parents and the players, and I would lay it all out. I would tell them, I'm going to be incredibly honest, even brutally honest with you, the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly. And of course, I would give them a chance to reciprocate as well. They could tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly of what it was like, coming through our program, me coaching them, all that stuff. And these were private meetings, and I got so much value out of them. But this particular meeting, let me tell you a little bit about JJ. First of all, JJ was a super, super talented young man. He's from Pittsburgh area, and he was a left-handed utility player, and he could just really, really hit. I mean, you could see he had an amazing future ahead of him with his bat. But in the meetings, my objective is not just to tell you how great you are. My objective is always to say, here's some areas that you need to improve upon. Well, you have to know JJ a little bit. He was a little bit, I don't think he'd mind me saying this, cocky. He was a little arrogant because he was such a great hitter. And if you're 14 years old and you're the best hitter in a long ways, it's easy to, as my mom used to say, feel your oats a little bit. So I had planned to kind of humble him a little bit. So we have our meeting, and I say, JJ, my estimation of you right now is you're a one-tool player. And remember, his mom and dad are sitting there as well. And I could already tell they were like, oh, this is going to be good. Somebody's going to tell JJ some things maybe he hasn't heard. So I said, you're a one tool player. I said, you can really hit. I said, but that's not going to be enough to get you where you want to go. And then I proceeded. And those of you who know me, I'm not always the most eloquent. I'm kind of like, let's just say it like it is. I said, JJ, let me ask you a question. Are you in the best shape of your life for the age you're in as a 14-year-old? Are you in the best shape? The reason I asked that because I knew he wasn't. And he kind of sheepishly kind of shook his head and said, probably not. And I said, are you the fastest you could possibly be? No, not really. Are you the strongest? Do you have the best athleticism you could possibly be? How about your arm strength? Is it a cannon? Nah, not really. So what I'm getting at here, JJ, and I'm kind of giving you the conversation, is there's a lot of areas that you can improve upon. And he just started sitting there, and he goes, "What should I do?" And I said, his dad was sitting there. His dad is he's a fireman, and he looks like a GQ model for firemen. I mean, he looks an absolute stud, ripped. And I said, I don't know, whatever he's doing, because he looks like the athlete. And JJ just looked at me like, I cannot believe you just negatively compared me to my dad. But I did, and I was doing it in joking and love, and I got away with it. So let me fast forward now. That meeting went well. We had a great meeting, and the parents really appreciated the honesty. And I think on some level, JJ did too, even though he was a little humbled by that. But now let's fast forward. His dad calls me in March, and he says, "Hey, Mark, JJ's high school season's about to get started. We'd really love to have you come over and watch him play." I'm like, okay, sounds like a good idea. I really hadn't thought that much about why, but I went over. He was from Norwin, Pennsylvania. I went over, and I'll never forget it. I walked up to the field, and there's JJ with a big smile on his face walking toward me, and he looks like a major league player. In less than 1 year, JJ morphed from somewhat out of shape kid to a major league body. He's got his pants pulled up, he's got stirrups on, and I give him a big hug and I say, "Oh my gosh, JJ, you don't even look like the same kid." He goes, "Coach, I listened to what you had to say and I did something about it." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes, you did." Great job. A lot of hard work went into that off season. That was October to March. Okay, so not a long time. Kid morphed his body. Well, he proceeds to go out and just tear it up in high school. His senior year, he won the WPIAL, the WPIAL Triple Crown. He gets drafted, and he gets a scholarship to go to Arizona. Okay, what a story! So he goes to Arizona, and I watch him on TV all the time, and he leads Arizona to the College World Series. So I'm watching him in Omaha play in the College World Series, and I'm still thinking about this, 14-year-old kid that's a one-tool player. So he gets drafted out of Arizona by the Houston Astros, and he works his way all the way up to the major leagues. I watch him on TV hit a home run, going crazy in the dugout with all the Astros stars. Just unbelievable to watch this and think back to that amazing, humble beginning that we had together. So, an incredible success story, and 99.9% of it, the credit goes to the family and to JJ. Because here's the point. They had to sit there, the parents had to sit there and listen to their son kind of get some tough love. That's not easy to do for parents. Second thing is JJ, as a 14-year-old kid, had to take this information in and decide either to rebel against it and tell me to take a flying leap or to go do something about it. Obviously, he chose to go do something about it, and the rest is history. I love that story. Now, not everybody makes it to the major leagues. JJ did, but I could tell you literally, and I probably will, maybe not hundreds, but I will tell you many, many, many stories like that over the course of the time, as long as you're here in our private Facebook group, because I've got a lot of them. I always tell people I could count on one, maybe two hands of the number of kids that I've coached over 17 years that are freaks of nature. Okay. That means they could have done everything wrong and still gotten to where they wanted to go. The vast majority of those kids were really, really good ball players and good athletes, but they got dramatically better, overachieved in many cases because of the information they got and their work ethic and their attitude, like JJ. Now, are there other kinds of people? Yeah, there are. I've had good, bad, and ugly meetings that were kind of ugly. Okay, I'll tell you about one. I'm not going to mention his name, but I had the same kind of meeting. This kid's scenario was different. He was a big kid, out of shape. His parents thought he walked on water. I hate to say it, but there are parents that think their kids can do no wrong. And we sat in the meeting, and I could just tell that they weren't taking this very well. They weren't buying in to what I was saying. I think they were sitting there thinking, like, who do you think you are telling my son that he's too big and out of shape to play Division I baseball? But that is what I told him. Now, here's the point. Number one, I don't think they were that receptive to this type of meeting. So maybe their ego, their pride, I don't know, but they weren't that receptive. And about 2 weeks later, they called me to inform me that they were moving in a different direction. And I said, "Oh, yeah, why is that?" They're leaving our program. And they said, "Well, that meeting we had with you wasn't very positive." And I go, "It really wasn't positive or negative. It was just information." And they said, "Well, it's pretty obvious that you don't think that highly of our son." And I said, "Man, I'm sorry you feel that way, because that is not the case at all. I was genuinely excited about your son because I could clearly see what he could become with the right plan." But they didn't take it that way. They took it as I was down on their son. I didn't think he could play Division I baseball. And it's unfortunate that the conclusion they came to was so inaccurate. As you would imagine, that kid did not make it to the major leagues. He didn't even make it to Division I baseball, which he could have. He played, you know, at a lower level, which is fine, but that wasn't his goal. And I'm 100% sure the reason he didn't reach the level he could have reached is because they weren't open to the truth. They had their mindset on what he was, and they couldn't see the forest for the trees. We call it rose-colored glasses. So I'll wrap this up by asking you a simple question. Which one are you? Are you JJ Metajevic? Are you JJ Metajevic's parents? Or are you the second player and the second parents, not open to the accurate information, what you really need? The answer to that question, I believe, will completely determine where your son ends up. The best players are open to that kind of information and willing to do something about it. The kids and the parents that aren't, they rarely, if ever, get where they want to go. So, you decide. I hope that those stories helped you today, and I promise you there'll be a lot more coming your way. Bye for now.